wheel of time turns and ages come and pass, leaving memories that become legend. Welcome to Dragonmount. I'm Kathy.
I'm Rajiv.
And I'm Maureen. Today we are talking about Season 1, Episode 4, entitled The Dragon Reborn. It was written by David Hill, and the director is Wayne Yip.
Fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to start off by saying that this was my absolute favorite episode of the six episodes that we've watched.
I agree.
And watching it again reaffirmed that fact.
Yes.
I love it. I love it so much. I love it so much. And every part of this episode was just perfection. I know. So now that we're recording this after the first 3 episodes have been released, so we've been able to kind of read a lot of reviews and thoughts that people have and comments and concerns and whatnot. And I don't know about Rajiv and Maureen, but I don't really care about a lot of the thoughts that other people have.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously everyone is more than welcome to have their own opinion, and I've really loved the comments on like some of the YouTube videos that we've done about how, you know, we're getting paid by Amazon to promote this, but here's the truth is that we're not. And we just are really enjoying the show. It's this turning of the wheel, just like we've said before, but we know how much care and love and attention the creators of the show have put into it, how passionate they are about it. I know for myself, talking to the cast and crew and seeing them in person, talking about this, they all care so very much. There's something really magical about this show, and it's not just, you know, the source material, it's not just the story and the pieces of it and the acting and the writing and all of that, but there's something really, really special that we have here. I know that there are people that absolutely hate it for some reason. And obviously there are things that I would have done differently or that are maybe not as whatever that we don't like or appreciate. But overall, 100%, this show is special.
Yeah, I think it's been fantastic. Despite having that kind of slow beginning, episodes 1 and 2, that the pace was a little off, but starting with 3, it goes up, and then 4, it just crests. And from here, it just is perfect. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this episode. And I think this might convert a couple of the people that were down on it in the beginning. Just even though it is a little bit different in the story, the pieces are there, the epicness is there, the world building is there. And I think this episode ties it all together.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying the show. You know, I tend not to read the comments, so I don't really know whether people aren't digging it or not. And it's kind of just besides the point to me. You know, I think we knew what we were getting into with the show. We knew this was going to be a different sort of story and adaptation. There were going to be things that are different. Actually, Maureen, I thought it was, I had a different opinion of the first 3 episodes. I thought they went so fast for me. And, you know, we're talking about a perspective that comes from the books where, you know, what happens in one episode is covered by about 10 chapters, 10 long chapters in the book. You know, I sort of like the ability to linger in those moments, and especially when I reread them, I liked all of the small moments in the Wheel of Time. You know, getting to know the 2 rivers, getting to know the characters, how they interact. That was a lot of fun for me. So, you know, the fact that the town burns down in the first episode and we leave it behind, you know, I kind of said, no, wait, there's so much more to do.
Yeah.
The show wants to pull in its viewers, those who maybe don't have that sort of nostalgic fondness for the books. So it's propelling these kids on a journey. They're not really kids anymore either. They're 20 years old. But it's propelling them on what I thought was kind of a breakneck journey to a city that they never actually reach until the second book. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. So yeah, let's get started on this episode. All three of our favorite episodes so far, I'm guessing.
Definitely.
The way this episode starts off, I really hope that people are struck by it as much as I was. There's really something. So we're in Galen, and it's war. This is the war that they've talked about. Logain comes in and is the epitome of a male channeler, the Dragon Reborn, coming in, owning it. You see the corruption. You see this like impressive moment, and the king is, running away and scared, and just the madness that has taken over Logain with a female and a male voice was just like so powerful and surprising, but not nearly as surprising as the end of it, when he's like, there's a place for anyone by my side, even my enemies, and decides to join forces with the king instead of killing him. I did not see that coming.
No, he definitely
whatsoever.
I think you said that he embodies the image of the male channeler, but I think even more than that, he looks like the savior. Like he's in that white garb, and not pure white like the white cloaks, but like a cream color. And he comes in, and the first shot of his face where he's out of focus, and then it focuses in slowly, which is similar to how Maureen is introduced in the first episode. Like, and it's just like a radiant glow around him. And he just comes in, and it's not until he channels and you see the corruption that you're like, oh, okay, maybe it's not as
angelic.
Yeah, not as angelic as it seems.
Yeah. And I love that Logain's voice, even though it's English, he again has there's a different accent. He sounds almost like he's from Spain, a very Spanish tinge to this accent, which again shows the cultural differences that they're sprinkling throughout. On top of the clothing, on top of the rituals and everything else that we've spoken with, these accents are not all posh British, as is, a traditional fantasy Renaissance period. They've put care into each of the choices for the locations that they're based out of.
And even the king, his accent was not British.
I believe he's played by a Spanish actor, right?
Logain?
No, the king.
Oh, the
King of Galen. One of the things that I was really waiting for, and this episode delivered, and it's probably why it's my favorite episode, is that we've heard about the Dragon Reborn. We've heard that the dragon could be a savior, the dragon could be a destroyer. We don't quite know what it is. We know that the Dark One is after the dragon. So we have all of this sort of tangential knowledge of what it means to be the Dragon Reborn. Now for the first time we see someone who claims to be the Dragon Reborn, and he's awesome. He's charismatic, he's dangerous.
Yes.
He is wrestling with madness, but he's not always listening to it. The voices, the two, the corruption forms these two figures, almost whispering in either ear, but they're both saying, you don't need this guy, go ahead and kill him. And Logain is the one who's saying, no, I will welcome you into my army. You can join me. You can stand beside me. There is something so powerful about that. You can see how armies would be drawn to this kind of a figure.
Yeah.
Even beside his ability to channel these serpentine flows of the power that are being enveloped by darkness as he channels, just that sort of charisma and the ability to say, hey, I'm the savior, come join me, and rally people around his banner, that makes him even more dangerous. And so we're getting a little taste of what it means to be the dragon. Later in the episode, we're told that, hey, Logain, you're just a spark compared to the raging son of the real dragon. So, my God, what does that mean when we see a figure like this who's really just a fraction of what we're going to be dealing with?
Absolutely. And what a way to start the episode. I mean, it throws you off because the end of episode 3 is completely different. You're not even paying attention to this. And it always is interesting when you start a new episode of a show and it doesn't have any of the characters that were at the end of the previous episode, and it just kind of is like a shock and a surprise. And so I can really see people rewatching and being engulfed in this part of the story, into that step into a different world in this episode, to kind of remind you of the greater story and not just the concentration of where they're looking at.
Well, even just the juxtaposition of the end of episode 3 where Logain's in a cage, and I can't remember if his eyes are closed, like he's meditating the whole time, or if he opens his eyes and looks at Moraine. At the end of episode 3, he's humbled. He's in a cage. He's not currently fighting. Yeah. And then at the start of episode 4, he's this character in pure white, and he's talking about binding the world and not breaking it. He's going to welcome his enemies. He does seem like that figure that could be the Dragon Reborn. And it's just really nice to see, like, oh, here he is in chains, and like, no, here's his origin.
Oh, well, and then we have the beautiful credits with the beautiful music, which it's rare that I will sit and watch the credits. I normally will like skip forward, but I really enjoy these. We're now going to break down each of the different plot lines. Hey, let's start with Egwene, Perrin, and the Tinkers. How about that?
Sounds great.
Still love the Tinkers.
Me too.
Love the introduction and getting to see a little bit more about their existence and their story and how charming Aram is. I love, starting off, you see, Perrin and Egwene are having their moment of like, Perrin's very uncomfortable, clearly. And Egwene's like, hey, we'll leave. When either of us want to leave, we'll go. Like, it's time. No excuses needed. And there's something really special about that kind of a relationship where it's like, hey, I trust you. If you want to go, we can go.
Yeah.
The connection with Aram, I laughed so hard when he's like, well, if you were bandits, you weren't very good. Like, duh. And that trust and kind of how it leads into the stories of the Way of the Leaf and why the Tinkers are going around and how the society works. I thought that was really, really well done for anyone trying to learn why these people are supportive of Egwene and Perrin and protecting them.
Yeah, they take in anybody who's struggling, and it's just their culture is to be warm and welcoming and giving as much goodness as they can.
And we hear a little bit more about that later on in the episode with Maria Doyle Kennedy as the amazing Isla talks about her story, but we're not there yet.
So one thing that stood out interesting to me is that the Tinkers said they were so far north because they were avoiding the southern roads because of all the soldiers. So Logain's insurrection and the Aes Sedai trying to capture him has shifted everything. And so that's the reason why the Tinkers are there in the first place, to offer aid to Egwene and Perrin. Like that's, I don't know, some major workings of the pattern, I guess.
Yeah, it throws in the tidbits of what Ta'veren are and why it matters. And I like the part where they're talking about, the Way of the Leaf and why it works. And when Isla says, has your life been better or worse since you picked up that axe? And looking at Perrin.
Very pointed question. Very specific question.
Very, very specific. And oh, goodness. We know his life was not better because he picked up the axe.
Yeah. There's a lot of controversy. I guess I do read some comments online, but there's a lot of controversy about the introduction of Layla and what they did with that character. A lot of people have been equating it with, the trope of fridging a character, killing a female character to provide a male character his motivation. The origins, I think, were in a Flash or a Green Arrow comic where the hero's girlfriend was killed and left in a refrigerator for him to find. just this horrible thing, but that gave him an excuse to go out, and it gave him motivation to go out and do all of the things, take revenge, do it in her name. I think the criticisms are valid, but I don't think this is exactly that situation. Perrin's motivation isn't coming from what happened to Layla. He's not propelled into action by what he did. If anything, Perrin is trying to make a choice. One is embracing the violence that seemed to come naturally to him in that first episode, but Isla and the Tinkers give him an alternative. He has reason now to find that a very compelling alternative. The way Isla explains it is that, violence begets violence, but the other way is to stop violence. And she has this wonderful quotation: what better revenge? This is an active thing. What greater revenge against violence is there than peace? That's got to be sitting with Perrin. So anytime he would pick up a weapon, he's adding to the problem under the Tinker philosophy.
Yeah. And the second part of that Isla said is, what greater revenge against death than life? Mm-hmm. That combination clearly is affecting Perrin and affecting his choice. He doesn't start asking to leave again. He enjoys the party. He's not really dancing yet, but he's there. He's present. He's existing with them instead of hiding away. And it's really poignant too, because the last time there was music and dancing was Winter's Night.
Yeah, when the Trollocs came. And, Perrin doesn't participate in the merrymaking like Egwene did, but he is among the community. He's fixing a wagon wheel. He's doing the work. And again, Isla says this wonderful line about what is the way he does honor is by finding peace in the work. That is the Perrin that I know from the books. That, in a nutshell, the man who just wants to do good work, good craftsmanship, take care, and help the world that way. So that just totally nailed that character for me, and I love to see it.
Yeah, I think his evolution here is taking a different path than where he would have been if he hadn't ran into the Tinkers and been introduced to this alternative view of the world. But one thing I did find interesting, is Aram really a Tinker yet? So he does mention that they go off at 20, so we're assuming he's right there. So has he gone and come back, or has he not? And the fact that he's kind of like, oh, it's mumbo jumbo, like there's no such thing as a song. But then Egwene, this newcomer who's able to see it from the outside looking in, says, are you sure you haven't found it already? And then it plays that soft music, and everyone's singing, and everyone's dancing, and everyone's having fun. I mean, even Aram had a new perspective on it. And I just love that. I love that scene.
And I think it also really makes sense as to why Aram's clothing is not as bright. It's more, not bland, because obviously it's Tinkers, so it's not. Bland doesn't work. There's, some wonderful embroidery and different combinations, and yet it's more reserved from others. So I wonder if his way of signifying that he hasn't left yet, and he hasn't had that Amish style Rumspringa, here, go out into the world to experience it and see what you make of it. So when you come back, you're not questioning what the rest of the world is like, so that you have a better understanding of what's going on and being able to really exist in this world that we are preparing and creating.
I'm glad you brought up that Amish practice. I think the Mormons have something similar, although they're going out to evangelize. But the idea is this: when you return to the community, you are making a choice. You have decided to accept this community. That's a really powerful and interesting piece of world building there. They're not pacifists just because they were raised that way. In fact, there was a hired assassin who gave up her life and became a Tinker.
Yeah.
these are people who are living very deliberately. They are embracing a certain way of life with a purpose. And I think now we can talk about it. Isla's speech about why she has given up violence and why she wants to be the incremental change that her children, her grandchildren, her grandchildren's children may not see. But it's rooted in this spirituality that's explored throughout this whole episode about reincarnation, and that we will be reborn. And what we're doing is we're just creating the better world for us to be reborn into. There's a hope for the far future
here. Yeah, and that combined with the line that Aram said about the leaf doesn't fight the wind. Sometimes the wind blows it away from the tree. That combination of all of the different pieces with the intentionality and the purpose of accepting what your life is going to bring you, purposefully living the way the wind is blowing. I think that's just really, really special. And I love how easily they layered the stories of this culture into the plot. And once again, like it's not heavy-handed.
The first thing I thought of when Aram gave that comparison of the leaf and the wind was going back to when Maureen talked about, that kind of badass line about, you don't listen to the wind listens to you. So on one hand, we have the Tinkers who are, they embrace their fate, but we also have the Aes Sedai who at least feel like they control fate.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah. It's two different ways of thinking of the wind. Both are valid and both are great ways to live, I guess, maybe. I don't know.
We'll see. It may prove itself out. The Aes Sedai may find that they have less control of fate than they think.
But that's kind of our wonderful scene with Egwene and Perrin. Obviously, they haven't left the Tinkers yet. They're still enjoying the hospitality of this community and family and letting them recover from the scary, scary traveling before. And it's kind of nice to see this, especially because something not very nice is happening over with Rand and Mat and Thom.
So this was the episode where the show is casting suspicion on the identity of the Dragon Reborn. And this is the part where it's Mat's turn, it seems, or at least one of the episodes where it seems like Mat is being looked at as, what's going on with this guy? He's starting to become a little snappish. He's getting sick. And there's some crazy, bubbly blackness coming out of him, which was really quite gross. Our friend Tom Marilyn tells a story about his nephew Owen, who had a lot of the same symptoms of hearing voices, of talking to people who weren't there. Now we're starting to think that, wow, maybe Mat is going mad from channeling, although we haven't seen him channel.
No, but we've definitely seen something's not right. They're traveling, and surprisingly, Rand is curious about Thom and unsure of everything in that situation. And Mat is really pointedly thinking about the fact that Dana was talking about how all 5 of them have been in the Dark Friends' dreams, and is obsessed with the fact that Nynaeve is still alive, as well as Perrin and Egwene. And so really thinking about that and obsessing with the fact that all 5 of them are in the dreams and all 5 of them are important and still alive. Rand is supporting Mat as best he can. He knows that they're not feeling great, but thank goodness they find a farm and they're gonna hide in a barn, or at least they're planning on it until somebody decides to say no.
Well, let's talk about the Grenwell family a little bit. I kind of liked that scene where they encountered Farmer Grenwell, because it gave Rand something to do to show his competence. We haven't seen Rand do a lot yet. And
other than kind of whine.
Yeah, and
yes.
kind of moon over his, over being dumped, sort of dumped, and knocking down a door, of course. He's the one, not silver-tongued Thom, but he's the one who talks down Master Grinwell, and he kind of points out, if you really wanted to kill us, you wouldn't be holding your bowstring that way. He manages to get them a bed in the barn, after, of course, mucking at the stables, which Thom doesn't do because he offers his own services as a gleeman.
Right. I love, too, that Mr. Grinwell was agreeing to, okay, yeah, you can stay in the barn. What do you think? The wife and son step out from hiding.
Yep.
Everyone's shocked. They didn't see this little boy and a woman were hiding behind them. I thought that was so great and really added this light-hearted bit to a fairly stressful situation. We're wondering, oh my gosh, are the three of them going to get shot by an arrow? Rand's attitude is not going to work, but it ended up working out. The Grinwells got stalls mucked out. Mm-hmm. So it was a win-win.
The Grinwell's daughter, who I believe from the credits is named Helga here.
Yeah.
She's a little tyke, and she brings Matt some bread, also offers her doll Brigitte. I loved that because we are still being reminded of why Matt is a good guy. Whatever else is happening to him, he is gentle and protective about children.
And even though he had just, thrown up this black grossness, he still pulled it together and was not just kind to Helga, but also really caring and supportive and like, hey, did your mom let you say you were able to stay in he knows. Mm-hmm. Helga was such a phenomenal actress. She was just magic in this tiny little bit of scenes. She just owned the stage. It was very cute.
Of course, it's not a happy ending at the Grinwell farm.
No.
That was shocking. We see Rand get up in the middle of the night, and he hears sounds, and he goes out, and he sees the entire family slaughtered. And Matt is standing there, his eyes rolled back, holding his dagger, pointing it at a dark space around the mantle. I see you. And then out comes the fade.
Oh my gosh.
Creepy, horrible scene, but so cool. Thom surprises us. This is not a simple gleeman. He's got knives upon knives.
You know that the Gleemans, they call themselves a silly name to make them less frightening. Nothing is more dangerous than a man who knows the past and knows how to use daggers. It was the moment of Rand is in a dream, and it has these moments of Balsamon is grabbing Egwene, and Perrin is hammering a pile of bodies. That's why Rand is looking for Matt. That scene is so poignant because it looks like Matt had slaughtered everybody until the fade comes out. And you're like, oh, thank goodness.
Right. Yeah. For half a minute, I did think it was Matt. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's going to be terrible.
And are we sure? Are we sure? I think
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. But I think we're meant to.
We're pretty sure.
We're meant to kind of question that.
For 30 seconds, I did. But after that, I did not. But there's an interesting comparison with Logain channeling at the very beginning of the episode. And you see these tendrils of black. And we don't see tendrils around Matt, but there is a lot of blackness around him when he's throwing up and the blackness coming out of his mouth. So, again, we're talking about him as a candidate for the Dragon Reborn. And they're showing us what we need to see.
Yeah. And it's definitely a possibility that all of this is connected. There's a reason that you see the corruption around Logain. It looks like the same blackness that's coming out of Matt. And that's really effective. Yeah, and then they run away, and poor doll Brigitte is left on the ground. I was hoping that they were going to take her with them because that would be sweet, but it makes sense. They got to get away.
You don't stop for a doll.
No.
when the old gleeman is holding back a fade.
Right. we've traveled with 4 of the 5 friends from the Two Rivers. We now know Nynaeve is alive, obviously. We've seen her interactions with Lan and Moraine, episodes 2 and 3. Well, mainly episode 3, but for half a second in episode 2. This episode really is developing Nynaeve's character with Lan and her feelings towards Aes Sedai. Episode 3, showed the sassiness that Lan and Nynaeve have together and how they interact. Oh my goodness. This episode blossoms that relationship in ways that is palatable. You can just feel charisma between the two, the chemistry between the two, the love. Yes.
So fantastic.
Yes.
They've handled this so well.
Also, the hate that Nynaeve has towards Aes Sedai. Liandrin comes in, Nynaeve is watching over the entire camp of the Aes Sedai, and Liandrin comes over and starts to want to talk to her, talking about, oh, is this how you must be Nynaeve. I didn't know how to pronounce it, and your accent, I don't know where it's from. And Nynaeve is like, well, yeah, I haven't spoken. Having no patience for the manipulation, which I thought was really impressive, especially in a camp full of Aes Sedai.
What's so great about that scene is that you do get the sense that Aes Sedai they're master manipulators. They know how to turn the truth on its ear, as they say. They are able to ferret out information, but Nynaeve is equally canny. I love that, she gave her speech in the first episode about how the Aes Sedai rejected the old wisdom because of her country accents and sort of shoddy clothes. But, she's determined to not give them an inch of respect that they don't earn. She knows she is their equal or superior. She's not going to be manipulated by these women. What was really interesting and sweet about that is that she's hard towards all of the Aes Sedai, but then when Lan comes in, that woman's a snake, isn't she? There's a whole tower full of snakes, aren't there? But she's talking with him. Aes Sedai, bad. Warders, they're okay. They're fun. There's a campfire full of them, and they like to get party down.
I love how Lan was like, you're welcome around our fire if you promise not to push me into it. Like, they've had this interaction, bickering, battling, and yet there's a level of care, and Lan knows that Nynaeve would not go by herself. She's not going to go to any of the Aes Sedai because obviously she really dislikes them, understandably so. But he knows that she needs food and warmth, a chance to relax. It's been a really stressful couple days, weeks, however long. I don't even know how long it's been. And so being able to introduce her to the rest of the warders was just so sweet of him and so supportive in a way that was really neat to see. And boy, howdy, do I love the warders too.
Oh my gosh, so fantastic. Great scene.
Oh my gosh, all I want to do is hang out with them.
Right.
Oh, they're great fun.
So much fun. And I love how they were so welcoming to Nynaeve and supportive, especially when but you serve them. And they're like, no, we don't. No bond is closer than an Aes Sedai and her warder. Not husbands and wives, not parents and children. And then we learn a little bit more about what the words Aes Sedai means, that they...
The servant of all.
Servants of all. So they serve the world.
What does that make you? Proud.
And tired.
Yeah, they consider themselves the Aes Sedai's equals. They don't see it as she's higher and she's protecting the world and I'm protecting her, but they see it as they're also protecting the world. And I like that. Yeah. Like, they're not a servant-master relationship. And we've seen that with the closeness of Lan and Moraine. Like, they are friends And you can see that very clearly.
Alana and her friends are not just friends, which is great.
Friends with benefits.
I loved the scene with Alana coming to the fire because it showed that Lan's playing a little bit of a game with Nynaeve. You know, she smiles, she gestures to her warders, and you know what's going to happen. They're going back to their tent and say, guess it's time to go back to the tents, or whatever they say. And then a few beats later, Lan says, well, I guess I better go back to the tent as well. And
yeah, I'm feeling a little tired myself.
I'm feeling a little tired myself, yes. You know, we had this in episode 1. Lan climbs into a bath naked with Maureen. We didn't know what that meant, whether that was just in their culture there's co-ed bathing, or are they lovers? And Lan's kind of playing that up for Nynaeve. He's keeping it a mystery, but in such a little low-key way. I'm enjoying the subtlety of their little dance together.
Yeah, it's really fun, and it's also very real.
Yeah.
It's something that the friends to lovers trope, or enemies to friends to lovers trope, any of these tropes, they're all great. And a lot of times they're really, really heavy-handed. This is much more gentle in the teasing. It feels like something that you've seen two friends in a friends group have this type of dance, and you're like, they're totally going to end up hooking up in a bit, but they have to get through the dance first. The moment where Lan is in the tent with Maureen, immediately his attitude changes. He's protective of Maureen, and he knows what she's thinking and answers, and like is there to support her, because Maureen is questioning in a way that she hasn't had an opportunity to, you know, wondering if Logain is the Dragon Reborn. The whole part of how it looks like the Dark One doesn't even know who the Dragon Reborn is. Just like that vulnerability that Maureen is showing was really, really poignant.
Yeah. I think that vulnerability, too, is really important in context of what we see later with Karenni and her warder, Stepan, where they're talking about Maureen and Lan. He's saying, you know, Lan doesn't say anything, Maureen doesn't say anything. What do you think their dinners are like? They're probably just staring at each other, right? So nobody really knows what passes between these two. And, you know, that's how it should be between Aes Sedai and her warder. Even to the external world, even to other Aes Sedai, Maureen and Lan are a bit of a mystery.
But this is another scene where they're communicating without speaking. Like, Maureen doesn't say anything, but Lan's like, oh, now you think it's Logain. Like, he can tell that. Questioning whether Logain's as strong as Egwene is really, really interesting, and we'll have to save that talk for a little bit later. But just the uncertainty that Maureen is feeling now, and Lan just feels it all and just reaches out with comfort.
And they hang a lantern on it, too. I think first thing Lan says is, you get emotional when I've been drinking. So, there's an interchange of emotion there through the warder bond. I love that line.
Yeah, it was so sweet to show that level of support and connection that they have without having to blatantly say, hey, I bet you didn't realize that drinking alcohol affects the warder and Aes Sedai bond, huh? I thought that was really, really sweet.
We ought to talk about the reason they're in camp, too. Maureen goes and gets her first close look at Logain, sitting in his cage, not breaking a sweat, meditating, apparently. Although sometimes he'll flex, and he'll nearly break their bond. They have to really struggle and link with each other. The Aes Sedai have to link their powers together to contain him.
But he's not giving any sign of that.
Right.
He is calm and cool and collected, and like he's in charge.
And yet, a lot like Alana says, it's like holding a cat in the bath. And the power behind Logain is clearly affecting everybody. There's only 4 Aes Sedai that are strong enough to hold the shield, which is meaningful. There's 2 shields there. Yep. When Maureen takes over for Liandrin, you can see the weight of this channeling. And it was just, wow. I love how much work and effort it takes to do it. And these pieces of it, this episode just showcases that so well. How much talent and practice, effort and work has gone into channeling to be an Aes Sedai.
Alana's conversation with Maureen about Logain kind of sets up the framing of this whole episode, sets up a lot of framing, but she thinks that just based on his strength, that this is the end of the age. The last battle is coming. There has been no other false dragon in her experience or in her lifetime that has been so strong. So things are coming to a head, and if he's not the one, then it will be someone else. Now, it's interesting that Maureen has not confided in Alana about this. We get a hint as to why, because Alana even says, what if the dragon was a man, the Reds gentle him, and we need him at the last battle? What happens then?
And the manipulation or attempted manipulation of Alana to try and, become friends with Maureen, and they're talking about the dog and talking about,
she had a dog.
Yeah, if she had a dog, because of course she didn't.
Of course not, no.
You can't have a dog as a novice. The manipulation and the attempted manipulation of Alana, and how she knows that Karene is trying to get to know more about who Maureen is and what she does. Maureen hasn't been in the tower for forever. She's been running around trying to find the Dragon Reborn, but nobody knows that she's trying to find the Dragon Reborn. And they all know that Swan absolutely is so angry at Maureen. And we learn that when Lan and Stepan are doing their dance, their weapons dance together and warming up and practicing. I loved that scene because it felt so real. It felt so natural that this is, what the warders do. They wake up and dance together.
Yeah, they catch up on their gossip.
Yes. And I love how you can see these pieces of the story, and they're trying to figure out why Maureen hasn't been in the tower for so long, why they've been wandering around the countryside, why they're here, and what they want to do. And I also really like that the conversation with Alana and Maureen, you learn that Green Aja gets more than one warder. It's a thing. It's a thing that makes sense for the Green Aja to have more than one warder, because they are the battle Aja.
And the line of Reds were staring at all of the warders because they, of course, have no warders.
And Alana does a good job of talking about that. She's like, I thought it was so heroic when I chose green. I'm the battle Aja. Now she's facing what it actually means. The last battle, fighting the One Power, the potential release of the Dark One. You don't think about those things when you're accepted choosing your Aja color. And I think she just did a good job of explaining, the stakes just got higher.
Yeah.
But we also, when Logain's army decides to come looking for Logain, we see that the Battle Aja isn't just a name.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Alana is a whirlwind.
Oh my gosh. Because we saw a little bit of the dance between a warder and the Aes Sedai at Winter's Night in the Two Rivers. We saw that, how they worked together. But seeing Alana with her warders and all of the other green Aes Sedai, the one with the adorable black bob and top knot, and the way they're standing back to back and she's doing the hand motions and he comes and he puts the shield over her to protect from the arrows so that she can push out. It was, the choreography was just phenomenal, and it felt, again, like a dance, and it was beautiful, powerful, and it made me so happy that I mentally manifest myself as Green Aja. I'm so happy at how they presented in the show. Mm-hmm. I just love it.
Yes.
Well, I'm like I said before, I'm also a comic book fan, and then the comic book movie fans. And what I loved about, the subsequent movies of the Avengers is that they'd show just all of the characters using these casual combination moves, like out of a video game, where Iron Man will blast Captain America's shield, it'll bounce off, and it'll slice through a couple of tanks, something like that. And that's what these Aes Sedai and their warders know how to do. They know how to do their combinations. They know how to work together. They've been doing it for so long. These are people who know how to go into battle, even with the constraints of the three oaths, which I have to say, was Alana stretching the oaths a little bit when she grabbed those arrows and thunked them back?
No.
I think the fact that arrows were coming towards them, obviously those arrows were meant to hurt them. And so at that point, you can use it to protect yourselves and your sisters and everyone else in the area. I think if they hadn't shot the arrows, they couldn't have, like, I don't know, Alana couldn't have pulled the arrows out of the quiver and turned around and faced them. That was an act of war from Logain's army, and so clearly they were in danger.
You're agreeing, Kathy.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, there's lots of wiggle room in the oaths, as long as they feel threatened.
Exactly. But before the battle started, we have another really beautiful, powerful ritual that Nynaeve witnesses Lan doing. It was so beautiful, and it was so meaningful, and we learned, again, how the Malkiri have their moments. They say it 7 times for the 7 towers of Malkir, and it was a different ritual, and with the water, and having that moment of the Malkiri, and then Nynaeve, instead of commenting on the ritual after he explains it, she honors him with the only ritual that she knows.
This was the scene where they really connected, I felt. Yeah. And it's because of so many commonalities that are running under the surface. Nynaeve, in the first episode, was cleaning the sacred pool. She is the keeper of the rituals and of religion back in the Two Rivers. That's her thing. When she saw Lan performing a ritual, she respected that automatically. That was something that she could relate to. Of course, when Lan translated the prayer in the Old Tongue that Nynaeve said, it was what the last king of Manetheren said to his wife: "We shall go into the land so our children can always hold us and will never be alone." I don't know if she knows about Lan's past yet. That is certainly her past. Her parents died protecting her, hiding her. Lan has also lost his family when his kingdom was overrun, just like when Nynaeve's village was overrun. So these two have some powerful forces connecting them, and I think they realize that now for the first time.
That little bit of flirting, you are exactly what I thought you were.
Yeah.
What was that? I loved this interaction, and I wanted it to go longer, but of course the fighting happened.
Yes, I really wanted to know what he was going to say when he's like, "You're exactly what I thought."
And of course, that's when the fighting would happen.
I know, right?
Of course.
Deprive me of this. The thing that stood out to me is that Logain is expecting his followers to attack. And how on earth could he know that? Liandrin said that his ears are covered with air. He can't hear. He has no idea. His eyes are closed almost the whole entire time. So how does he know his army's approaching? And I'm wondering if the madness is able to communicate.
Oh.
Interesting.
I think that could totally work.
Or if he's figured out a warder bond.
Or that was my other thought, that he's bonded the king of Gildan.
Also a possibility. Or Logain gets that smile on his face when he almost senses the agitation of the Aes Sedai that are holding his. They recognize that there was a battle coming. Yeah. Even without hearing it, he probably could tell and recognize
that their attention was diverted.
He was just waiting for them to slip.
Yep, exactly. And he knew, like, the only thing that would do that would be his army, the ones that he knew we were coming for him, which is why he was sitting there so calm. He was just patiently waiting. There was no need to push. There was no need to fight. When they were here, he's like, okay, cool. I'm not the only one. And the thing that really struck me is how easily he pushed everyone away. He clearly was playing with them.
Well, Leandrin mentions it's half his strength, and it was taking 2 of them to contain him. And even that half? Maybe that's only a quarter.
He was holding himself in reserve for this moment.
Yes.
Yeah, because he knew he couldn't get past all of the Aes Sedai and all of the warders by himself, waiting for the army to come down and attack it. How easily Logain melted his cage around him, just like butter.
That was
just
beautiful and terrifying.
Oh my gosh. It had that same essence of power that the beginning of the episode had.
So that's an interesting kind of detail about how they've rendered channeling in the show. Moraine, through dialogue, actually confirms that women cannot see men channeling. You know, I've never been sure up until this point whether normal people could see Aes Sedai channeling. Did Master Hightower see Moraine's weaves when she was sinking his ferry? This at least tells us that what we see is not what everyone sees. Maureen, to your point, I don't think they know how to gauge a man's strength. He could easily have been just showing them a fraction and just waiting for his moment when they slip up to push and break out. How close is Logain to the Dragon Reborn?
I love that Maureen comes in. She has to know. Like, why should I believe that you are the Dragon Reborn?
That was so unexpected. I thought she was going to get attacked. But no, she goes and talks.
Yeah, I thought she was going to attack him, and she needs to know. And
she's still doubting herself.
Well, yes. and Logain had made that comment. Those women should be following me, not fighting me.
Yep.
And Moraine's willing to talk. She's willing to parley.
Learns that he hears all of them. Yeah. Whispers of 1,000 dragons. And so that's what the madness, those are the voices that he heard. Indicates that the dragons could be male or female. Yeah. Because we saw that in the opening scene.
Well, and this is a callback to the very first episode when Tam Althor is telling Rand about the cycle of reincarnation, and he mentions that maybe there's a reason why we don't remember our previous lives, but, we still, our job is to do better. Here, Logain has a conviction that the reason he can hear his past voices is so that they can teach him how to do better, how to be better this time. This fits into the faith of this world.
Yes.
This is really good meshing of world building. Logain is convinced himself that he's the dragon because he is getting this advice. He is getting this advice from his past selves who he thinks are dragons. And who knows, maybe they are.
She says, "Why should I believe you?" And he says, "I can hear them when I channel."
Whispers of 1,000 dragons, 1,000 lives I've led. They're teaching me how to be better.
It wants us to do better. Yeah. And then the look on Moraine's face, this utter relief, like, oh no, like, you're just crazy after all.
Yeah.
Like, that's not what the wheel does. The wheel doesn't want good. It doesn't want bad. It just is.
Yeah. The wheel so doesn't that was nice. Want. People want. Which is different from saying the wheel weaves as the wheel wills. The wheel has no will in here.
All of a sudden, Maureen isn't alone with Logain anymore. Karine and Leandrin are there getting ready to fight against Logain. Logain is ready to destroy them all, and Karine sees that to the detriment of herself. And that death, I expected it to come, but it still was just like she lost her life because she was protecting others. Don't ask me why she didn't put a shield in front of herself. It's fine.
Stretched too far, her power?
Maybe. I don't know. But
because even when Leandrin and Moraine link, Moraine doesn't reach out with a little bit of healing to like, oh, I'm going to close that wound just real quick until somebody else comes. So I think they're all just stretched. Now that Logain is, like, the veil's been removed, and he's, like, lashing out at his full power.
Well, and what's so interesting is how they did the visual effects of that. So his white tendrils, his one power tendrils, are being contained by the cage, but what's leaching through it is the blackness, is the corruption, and they're forming these spikes that he throws. He is using the Dark One's corruption as a weapon, which is powerfully
so
symbolic.
interesting. Liandrin and Maureen are battling, and the battle is coming to them because Stepan was with the army, felt his Aes Sedai die, and immediately tells everyone else, hey, we gotta go, this is not good. He attacks Logain, and it was so cool. Like, Logain was shielded, and the axes are pushing through the shield, and the corruption leaps in, like, leeches out as a weapon. Like, he's able to use the weapon to attack others and just massacres everyone in the room. Was not expecting that.
No, yeah, that was very shocking when everyone falls and then Lance gets that slice across his neck.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like, what?
I'm sorry, huh? Did I?
Yeah, yeah.
What?
Very shocking.
But thank goodness Nynaeve is there. Like a radiant sun. She heals everyone, and the rage and the anger coming from her that she is not letting these people die.
I don't think she's concerned about everybody.
Well,
I think
no,
it's just Lan.
But like,
and everyone is healed as like a side effect.
Everyone's healed, yeah. The power pushing into Lan to heal him was too much to like it and hit everybody else. But like, I loved that bit. The wind blowing her braid up in the air, so powerful.
And Logain shields his eyes.
Yeah.
So can he see, or is she also flashing?
There is a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if he can see her weaves.
I don't think he can see her weaves, but he can see the power, a force of the one power coming in that was, blinding and just blinded everything in the room while it's healing. And that's why he's like
a raging sun.
And that was just, oof. And thank goodness, because that was enough to distract Logain. So Liandrin took charge and did the one thing that she wanted to do the entire time. And yet still had, the mindset to do the full thing, let the hand of the tower fall on you, Logain Ablar, and take back that which nature does not want you to hold. And
one gets the sense she practiced that line.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. She stood in front of a mirror and was like, yes.
Definitely. Yes, she did.
Oh my gosh. But the way that the stilling worked, because of course we had seen somebody stilled before, but not like
this. But we didn't see the flows.
We didn't see the flows. We didn't see that. It's almost as if Liandrin's super powerful because six Aes Sedai are linked with her, pulling that in to still Logain, and then it's almost like forcing the power out, and you see the corruption stilling out. As it leaves, the tear is falling down his cheek, and the loss that you just feel deep as you're watching it. Just so emotional.
And because Thom told us the story of Owen and what the consequences of so-called gentling is, we know what's happening to him. We know he is getting the will to live ripped out of him bodily. Did anyone else used to imagine gentling is happening around the head? I never thought about it at the chest. For me, it was always like it goes around your head and it like cuts something.
Right, yeah. I would assume it would be in the head.
But no, they're ripping the darkness right out of his chest.
Yeah, and like the black wings almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like devil wings.
Yeah.
But poor Logain, like I really sympathize with him. Like he was strong and capable, and he really did believe he was the dragon. And when Moraine came in and told him he was crazy, like I think it really shook him. And then not only that, but then Liandrin takes the power away from him after that. It's like two severe blows, one right after the other.
Right.
And then seeing Nynaeve with this power. So 3 blows. Like
3 blows
Logain.
in like a 10-minute
Right.
like span of time. Here he thinks he's going to, rule the world, but no, just kidding.
Just kidding.
He's not the most powerful channeler in the area.
No, it breaks my heart.
Yeah.
I really was hoping that Logain was going to be our main antagonist for season 1. I was really hoping there was going to be battles and give and take on both sides, and we're battling, and finally we take him down. And so I'm a little bit sad that we didn't get to see that.
I also expected, especially when we learned that Logain would have an expanded role, that Logain would be the main thing. But man, oh man, was this a great way to end the episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So satisfying.
Well,
so satisfying.
This episode, it was, in a way, it was a digression from the main story, but in another way, there's a craft concept of mirror subplots, and so even though we haven't identified the dragon yet, here we're seeing what it means to be the dragon, and what the dangers are, and what the stakes are for the dragon to fail. We get that all in one episode. I think that really establishes us well for starting to worry about our 5 travelers from the 2 rivers. Something like this could happen to them.
And now that we know that Nynaeve not only can channel, but is so powerful, that adds that extra layer of concern for our 2 rivers folks.
And Leandrin slips it in when she's talking to Nynaeve. She says the Reds are there to protect the world against anyone who would misuse the power. Not only men, but women too.
So, yeah, this episode was everything emotional. I had hoped it would be. So emotional and so roller coaster. The beginning of the roller coaster, where you're chugging along and it just gets higher and higher and higher, and now like the stilling of Logain was kind of like we're heading over the top of that first huge hill, and we're ready for the ride.
Yeah, I can't wait to share it with friends and family. It's going to be just mind-blowing.
This isn't the ending, but it is an ending. Before we end and transition over to the book discussion, we want to make sure that you join us on Dragonmount.com, hang out with all of our social medias, especially with these episodes of the show. You can find on the website, we have all sorts of static content from full episode breakdown, bit by bit, everything that's written that happens in the show is on our website. We have videos for each of these episodes where we talk about our 5 hot takes. We have, obviously, this podcast episode, but also on Saturdays after the show airs on the Friday. On Saturday, we have a live where you can hang out with Thom and friends to talk about the episode that you just watched. So it's a great way to build the community, hang out with other people, other fans of the show, and ask questions, talk about theories, discuss what's going on, what happened, kind of like a watch party, but not a watch party because you can watch it whenever you want and then come and hang out with us. So you can find all of that information on Dragonmount.com. All of our social media is at Dragonmount, well, with the exception of Instagram, which is at Dragonmount_. Also, make sure to check out the live coverage that Jason, Denzel, and I had. We just got back from London where we were at the red carpet premiere. Absolutely mind-blowing. Such a wonderful experience. So thankful for Amazon to letting us do that. And we hope that you enjoy that. But now let's talk about the book because holy cow! The difference.
So different. So different.
So different.
So good.
So good. I mean, let's loop around and start with Perrin and Egwene. And the difference is in the books.
Just know Elias, which is strange to not have a spirit guide with Perrin starting the spiritual wolf journey.
Yeah.
Honestly, I miss him. I miss him. I liked him as a character.
Very much so.
I think right now, the relationship with the wolves and what the wolves are is a mystery, and maybe the wolves are not the same way as in the books. In the books, they are thinking, sentient, creatures with language and culture who can guide Perrin and mentor him. And here they're wolves. So we don't really have that bridge.
I think I would argue that they do have culture and conversations and stuff, just not English like words. Because they were able to get across the story that they wanted. And in episode 3, they were able to herd Perrin to where they needed to go.
Yeah, but it was Egwene that noticed they were being herded, not Perrin.
No, but he still was afraid of them because of the dream and having that awareness. But this episode, there's nothing with the wolves at all. And obviously because they don't like being around the tinkers and the domesticated wolves. But I wonder if that's on purpose, because in the books, it kind of just happened that Perrin could talk to wolves, even though he was running
verbal.
from them.
They're fully verbal. They can have conversations.
Fully verbal. How do you do that in a show? I'm so glad they didn't have like puppets with mouths moving or like put peanut butter
talking animals.
We might have that.
We might have that. I think if they have the wolves speak in words, I think it's going to be voiceover.
No, it'll be images. I bet, just sending pictures. If they even go that deep, they might not.
I can easily see them not doing that at all, and that would work, and that would be okay. But also, we have more stories in the Tinkers, so we learn more from Isla, and there's the whole Rumspringa purpose of at 20 you can go away and not be a part of the Tinkers, and that part of the Way of the Leaf is really interesting, because before it was very much, if you are a tinker, you're always a tinker.
Yes.
And other people can join us. You can't leave, and if you leave, you are
a lost one.
Isn't that what Isla says when Aaron picks up the sword?
Yeah. And I thought that was really interesting, that there is this piece that it becomes more of a decision as opposed to just where you're born.
Yeah, and it gives them more depth. It's not just a mindless cult. This is our choice. This is our lifestyle. This is our culture.
Exactly.
We're not brainwashed into believing this. But I do wonder if Aram is getting ready to leave for his 20th.
Yeah.
And that's when he's going to get wrapped up. Or is he not? Are we not going to have Tinkers be a part of our main storyline?
It would be a shame to cast someone like Aram who's
so charismatic.
Yeah. I mean, he would make, I think I mentioned it before, I think he would have made a great Matt.
Yeah.
I would love to see him again, and I hope he continues.
And I think because Aram has already not fully embraced the colorful aspect of the Tinkers, I think it's possible that that's some foreshadowing, that the wind is not going to push his leaf back. It's going to push him away.
That's too sad. But he also didn't flirt with Egwene, and she didn't flirt with him nearly as much as we get in the books.
Yeah.
Which I think was okay, though, because Aram recognizes, hey, that your heart is with somebody else. And so it doesn't feel gross. They're still dancing and they're teasing each other and flirting, but not to the point that it was in the books.
I have to say, I missed all of that. I know it's a consequence of aging up the characters too, but the little flirtation between Aram and Egwene, the Tinker girls dancing the Sasara, making Perrin blush. I loved that, but that doesn't work with a tortured older Perrin. It needs a more innocent, wide-eyed farm boy who's just having his first taste in the world and going, I don't know how to react to this. Rand knows how to deal with girls. I don't.
Right?
I have a fondness of that, but I understand why it's not part of the show.
And I think that's something that we're learning, is that you can miss a part of the books, but understand why it would not work.
Yeah. And we have the books.
Yes, so. Exactly. Yeah.
Actually, that's a good segue to another thing that I missed. Can we talk about the Grinwell farm?
Yes, please.
The chapter in The Eye of the World, Play for Your Supper, was one of my favorite chapters. In fact, I remember that Rafe had done something online saying, what scenes of The Eye of the World do you absolutely want kept? And that was the one I named. And part of it was because this was the scene where we have these hayseeds, these young characters who've never seen much in the world, who are starting to learn how to make it on their own. Thom wasn't there. They had already gone through Whitebridge, and Thom had defended them from the Fade, presumably died. They were now just trying to figure it out and going from town to town, from farm to farm. This was where they started to show some glimmers of talents that they had. Matt would juggle and do things like that. Rand would play the flute. And of course he had this moony-eyed farm girl kind of flirt with him and make eyes with him. And then, the mom sort of makes sure that they're off by sunrise. But it's such a coming-of-age scene. And it shows these two characters really on their own and trying to figure out how to go forward. And I loved that part. But of course, these are older characters now. And the Velocity, they are heading towards Tar-Valon now, and they are trying to get there as fast as possible.
And also, just the heartbreak between Rand and Egwene is too fresh. So Egwene flirting with Aram wouldn't make sense, and Rand flirting with another girl wouldn't make sense. Like, it's still too new.
She flirted with him.
And that's I think he liked it, though.
Of course he did. Why wouldn't he? You can love someone and still enjoy being flirted with.
The change in having Matt's corruption be more physical makes complete sense. Also, the vomiting and the weird smoke stuff, the thought that he murdered the family. In the books, it's very, it takes forever to happen, and progressively gets worse, and Rand's confused as to why, but it doesn't seem fully out of character for Matt. Whereas in this episode, you see, obviously they recognize that something's wrong. Even Thom recognizes that something's wrong. And I think that's really powerful for the visual aspect of it, because you don't have 300 million pages to talk about how Matt gets a little bit worse. Just a little bit worse.
Well, it's serving a different purpose, too.
Yes.
For the readers of the books, we know that Rand is the Dragon Reborn. That's not something, we're not trying to guess who it is.
Yeah.
So what's happening with Matt is something different. We know the Shadar Logoth evil has infected him. We know that there's a different danger involved here. Here it's being used as, well, let's find
herring.
all of the different red herrings for each of the characters to keep us guessing.
But even for viewers, how is it not obvious that it's the corruption from Shadar Logoth? Like, it's still that same blackness that's coming out of his mouth as the blackness that was on the ground that ate the horse.
Although I think they've been really consistent about having the blackness represent everything. It was
all of the corruption.
Yeah, you're right. All the way from Mashadar to the corruption, even the Trolloc poison, for that matter, is this black, gooey stuff. That is the stuff of the Dark One.
Well, and I know, again, because I'm reading everything, both good and bad. My absolute favorite is the book readers sharing conversations that they're having with non-book readers who are watching the show. Seeing the speculation of who the dragon is, I think just shows how powerful this entire idea of season 1 is and how well it's working, because so many people think it's Matt.
Oh, interesting. I did not know that.
And it's mainly because of, obviously not this episode, because his choices. I think when they see this episode, they're going to think that it's also Matt even more so.
Even more, yeah. Thom pretty much spells it out.
Exactly.
But at the end of the episode, it should be Nynaeve.
Well, and that's
all signs point to her.
Moraine has said she's 5 years too old. Unless the prophecies are wrong.
The look on Moraine's face when she sees Nynaeve heal everybody is like, holy shit.
Maybe I was wrong.
Yeah, totally.
People don't expect Nynaeve. It's Egwene or Matt, but also I guess it could be Rand, because he really doesn't have anything going for him. Seems to be like the common conversations that people are having. And so I think at the end of this episode, it's going to be, it's either Matt or Nynaeve.
And Nynaeve was dismissed so quickly, but I think that would be a good, like, throwing this scent off. Like, we dismissed her in episode 1, but in episode 4, no, she kicks ass.
It'll be so interesting to see the conversations that people have. And I want to know, please continue to share conversations that you have with family. Like, I want it all. It makes me so happy to see.
Yeah. My spouse, he like, I've been reading Wheel of Time forever. I say things around him, so he knows everything. I couldn't even give him like a virgin watch through of the show because I've just corrupted everything. That makes me really sad.
Aw. Yeah, I can't do that with my spouse either. He also has read all of the books. But my parents, so I need to talk to them. I'm going to talk to them over Thanksgiving because my parents kind of read the books. I think they got to book 4. My mom might have gone further, like 6, right before the slog.
Oh, yeah.
It'll be really interesting. They just started watching the show. They're just like, wow, it's so pretty. But that's all I've heard from them. And I'm like, okay, you got to tell me more. What do you think? Tell me more, please. Thank you.
Yeah, my family has no interest in it.
Oh, really? That's too bad. Interesting, even for non-readers.
I got a lot of people that hadn't read the books or hadn't known about them or whatnot. And then upon seeing my trip to London, are like, we'll watch it. And so I've gotten messages of, we're really enjoying it, but no details. And so now I'm like, okay, give me details. Who do you think? Talk to me. And I think this episode in particular is really going to hook people. And I hope people give it the chance that it deserves just because it's such a good episode.
And that's really interesting. This episode, at least the A plot, if there was something that you could call an A plot, was not in the book at all.
Yeah. None of this existed.
Right. And I think it does provide that mirror subplot purpose. Thematically, it's very relevant. It illustrates really what's at stake and what this dragon thing is. But yeah, this is whole cloth invention.
But still done so well. I'm going to say that they're still not doing anything out of character. They're still doing things Book Lan would have done if he'd been in this position.
Yep.
Book Nynaeve would have done this.
100%. I can totally, you see his care. He's not as reserved as he is in the books. You know, I constantly think of the conversation that Min has with Nynaeve after they're married, when he's like, oh, that doesn't look like, how can she, love him? He's so stony and whatnot. And then she sees him smile at Nynaeve or something. And it's like, oh, that makes sense.
I think it was Elaine. She said it was Egwene. Their marriage bed must be cold. And then Lan whispers Taishar Manetheren to her. And then she blushes and she's like, oh, maybe their wedding bed isn't as cold as I thought.
I love that we get to see Lan as more of a character than just, Moiraine's right hand, basically. And the power of the warders in the Aes Sedai. You see the different relationships that it can be. Obviously, Alana and her warders have a very different relationship than Lan and Moiraine, but also Corrine and Steppen. And that sweet moment where they're talking and Corrine says, you worry more than you used to. And Steppen says, I sleep less, so I have the time. Like, that caring, supportive relationship is just so sweet.
With Lan and Moiraine, we see a friendship. With Alana and Ivan and Maxim, we see lovers. And then with Steppen and Corrine, I think we see a brother-sister.
Yes.
And so it just shows all the different levels that the bond can give.
I think it's really important to show the different relationships that men and women can have. It's not automatically a lover's.
Yes.
And I think I just, that's so powerful. It's so rare. And it's really, really neat.
Well, and the difference in the show as well is that we see a lot more male-male relationships. And I'm not just talking about lovers like Ivan and Maxim, but even Steppen and Lan doing the forms together and joking with each other. They talk about each other's feelings. They're not these wolfhounds barely leashed
party warriors that right. I don't feel anything.
They're actually warmer than the Aes Sedai. And they're a community too. That's something that we never saw, was the warder community as a community.
Yeah.
It was just always like a byproduct. Like, oh, there's a warder over there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Afterthought.
I'm constantly just in awe at how magical the weaving Rafe has done with all of these pieces. And the idea of how do we show what being the dragon means, and how do we show the Aes Sedai and their warders in a way that explains what's going on, and how do we experience all of these pieces in a scene that's not from the books and still make it feel like the Wheel of Time. And I think he just owned that. Oh,
We still got a little bit of time.
Okay.
So one other thing that jumped out to me was when Lan asked Moraine, is Logain as strong as Egwene? And so that implies that men and women can have the same strengths, which is, I think, great for this world building, that some women are just as strong as men, some men will be weaker than the women.
I think that's really, really interesting, especially because of the way that, you know, the souls can be reborn and whatever power you wield, doesn't matter what body you're in.
So we are going to have that divide in the power, but I think, Maureen, you make a good point here that the nature of the two powers is a lot more similar in this thing, and this is where I do wonder what they're keeping and what they're not. We know that women can't see men's channeling. We also get the indication from Logain's reaction to Nynaeve that maybe he can see women's channeling. Now, in the books, men could feel women's channeling as a prickling on their skin. In this visual meeting,
I don't think Logain saw the weaving from Nynaeve. He
didn't see the weaves.
Yeah. I don't think he saw the specific weaves that she was doing. I think the power of her rage caused light, and I think that's what the light was, not necessarily the weaves.
So there's some other power going on?
Well, and her hair flipped up. I mean, so there's something physical going on there.
Yeah.
He recognized enough to be impressed at the strength of it.
Oh, and he said a blazing sun.
Yeah.
So that's implying he's seeing some of the light.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, you know, in the books, Logain is able to see ta'veren. That's one of his talents.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
If he can see that, and then he suddenly sees a glow around Nynaeve, and we know Moraine thinks there's 4 ta'veren. Maybe there's potentially 5 ta'veren.
Yeah, fair enough.
Maybe. I don't know, but stay tuned. We hope you enjoyed the Dragon Reborn episode, and we hope you enjoyed our episode of this podcast. Once again, you can find us online at dragonmount.com, all of our social medias. Thank you again for joining us. I'm Kathy.
I'm Rajiv.
And I'm Maureen.